here. Guys, thanks for logging in today. We're excited about tonight. Obviously, you can see the screen there. First class lacrosse. We got Deemer class on. He's a friend of the program and great player, great coach. Has a really cool way of kind of getting his message across and teaching, and just a phenomenal teacher on the offensive side of the field. And we're excited that he decided to come out here and share his time with us and teach you guys a few things. So we're going to turn it over to Deemer. And Deemer, just so you know, I don't know how you've been running these or how you want to do it, but we've been allowing guys to unmute themselves, ask questions, raise a hand or throw something up in the chat bar. So I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you do your thing.
Yeah, awesome. Well, hey guys, if you do have questions, unmute is fine. And also if you want to pop it in the chat, I think it notifies my screen. So I'll try and address those throughout. So I definitely encourage that, because I think having those questions, helps you guys really to engage and absorb the material and just kind of get a sense of, why it works and just get that understanding. So hopefully you guys have a few questions, but, Greg and Train, thanks so much for having me on. I've been to Columbus a few times the last couple of years and, traveled, do some clinics. I am a midfielder for the Chaos, and I'm the women's offensive coordinator out at USC. Grew up in Baltimore and graduated from Duke in 2016. So fired up to be on here with you guys. I know it's a weird time. I know it's a tough time, but, appreciate you spending some time out of your day to, take some time to listen to what I have to say. And hopefully you guys walk away with a couple, nuggets, couple drills, that you guys could, start doing in your backyard if they're drills that you haven't done already. The way I think all these webinars have gone for me with different sessions and different things that we've done is just trying to give you guys, more resources and more knowledge, especially taking advantage of technology. And, I think in my career, I've really tried to just be a student of the game and learn as much as I can. So excited to help you guys out in any way and share some time. So, what I did was I prepared a little presentation on shooting, something that I focus a lot on when I teach. I'm an offensive midfielder, so it's been a part of my game that I've really taken pride in and tried to keep working on and love teaching it. So, with that, I'll kind of just get going here. So we're going to go through some time and room, just talk about some fundamentals that I focus on, a little warm-up progression that I think is, helpful, whether it's game day, pre-practice, prior to a workout. We're going to kind of show some clips and how that incorporates so that, you see how the things that we do in drills and teach, show up at, high levels of the game. And then we're going to go through some on the run, a little bit on the run. And then lastly, this line down here about consistency is king. I think no matter what position you are on the field, being consistent, during the course of a game, a practice, a season, how you train, can really, make a big impact in how you perform and also just how you live your life day to day. And so that's a really big focus for, what we do and how we try and teach. So, you'll kind of hear me talk about that and how it relates to our mechanics and our form and things like that. So again, really excited to work with you guys. And the one thing I always like to preface with when I, teach shooting or teach anything really is that, you guys are really fortunate to have such a great staff at Resolute and have coaches that have played at the highest levels and really care about you guys. And so like when I teach, it's not always, about having everything, possibly be the exact same or everything that I'm saying is the only way. It's that, some of this stuff is just stuff that I've learned, and there's different ways of saying different things. So, it's kind of just about, being open to that knowledge and then, taking different things from different people and applying it to, already the great coaching that you guys get. So hopefully there's some things in here that you guys can take away and, also just reinforce stuff that you guys are already learning and working on. So excited to dig in here. I'm going to try and share the presentation. I've had a little trouble with it, like clicking in and out, but we will give it a go here. So what we're going to do here, I'm just going to go through a couple clips. I want you guys to think about the clips as you're watching them and drop in the chat some things that you notice, and that'll kind of kick off our discussion. So don't be shy about writing some things in the chat, what you see these next couple clips, and then we'll bring it back and I'll start to talk about some things that we're going to focus on when it comes to shooting. So this is, a lot of these are NCAA tournament play last year. This is NCAA quarters, Notre Dame versus Duke. A couple plays right here when it comes to time and room. So this is more off of a pop. Nice little man up step down here from Brian Costabile, same game. Got Maryland UVA, Dox Aiken. And again, just try and watch each shot and think about some trends and things that you kind of consistently see. So this comes back to that film piece about, you know, what we're looking for, how it applies. And there's no wrong answers. It's all part of helping your understanding. Good ball movement here. 2 passes to a shot off a dodge from X. This is Syracuse this year. Jamie Trimboli, really great shooter to study.
Hey, Deemer, I don't know if it's just my screen, but it's looking a little choppy to me.
Is it?
Yeah.
Mine as well, Deemer.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's just my connection. Try and do a few more and see if it gets any better. What I can do too, guys, is I can send you the clips. And that way they can kind of go back and watch if it's hard to see.
It's looking better now.
All right. I'll go back there and I'll try and rewind and see if we can't do things a little slower. So fellas, drop in chat any thoughts. I know it was a little choppy, but a couple good thoughts here. A couple of thoughts about placement, low and away. Some of these shots, time and room off the pass. A little bit more about spacing, changing planes, right? Catch and release. All good thoughts here that we're gonna touch on, because it kind of really ties into how we really try and think about shooting, right? Catching the ball loaded, we'll get to that. Taking room. Good stuff, fellas. All right, so as we kind of take a step back here. So when we think about shooting, think about our consistency. You know, we really like to keep it simple. You know, we like to think about, you know, a couple main points that are going to help us be more consistent, stuff that we can fall back on, you know, whether we're nervous, you know, maybe lacking a little confidence, excited about a big game, you know, maybe we're going through a shooting slump, or maybe we're, you know, scoring 5 goals 3 games in a row. You know, what are our fundamentals that we kind of fall back on? And a big thing that we start with is our footwork, and that's making sure that we're really stepping to our target. And that's something that, you know, is really key for us. We think everything really starts with the ground up, making sure that, you know, if our footwork is, you know, inconsistent, or our footwork is constantly changing, the rest of our body is going to have to adapt to that. So when we focus on step into our target, you know, we say really step into our target because, you know, the goal is 6 by 6, 6 feet tall, 6 feet wide. And that target can be a little wider than if you think about a couple other sports like baseball, like football. The targets that those guys are stepping to are pretty concise. You know, 18-inch plate, I think, for baseball, shoulder width of a person for a receiver. So step into your target is a lot more specific. And I think, when we think about, where we're stepping on the cage, we really want to make sure we're stepping to that target on the net. So that's kind of where we start, with building our base with our footwork. Moving on, we think about, the clock. We like to think about, obviously we have different release points. There's overhand, there's sidearm, there's underhand. And we like to really use the clock to help us as a guide, for making sure that we're having a consistent stick path. And I think that, as you think about a lot of these shots, a majority of them are overhand. But even if you think about a guy, like Ethan Walker or Mac O'Keefe, even those guys, majority of their shots are underhand, but their stroke and their release is very consistent. And so to me, that's kind of the takeaway, where it's understanding how our stick path works. Just like if you're thinking about a golfer, a golfer, hits the ball with the same mechanics every time. The club follows through by the shoulder. And obviously in lacrosse, there's time and place for different situations, maybe shooting around a defender, maybe you're running up the field. But especially in these time and room scenarios, if we can be really consistent, that helps us out. So when we talk about the clock, we think about our body as a clock, our head being 12 o'clock and our feet being 6 o'clock. And we think about righty going from 11 to 5 and then 1 o'clock to 7. And so those are just kind of the cues that we like to focus on, when it comes to our release. And then if you're thinking about underhand, we flip that. And that way we can kind of follow a consistent stick path every time we're shooting the ball a certain way. Next, we think about our weight transfer, really driving off of our back leg, staying balanced. We talked about stepping to our target, but really generating that power from our lower body, especially because, I see so many shooters that really rely on their waist and up and try and muscle the ball, power it. They don't get as much as they should when they drive off their back foot. But also, there's a lot of shooters that tend to, have imbalance after they shoot. They're falling off to the right, they're falling off to the left. And that comes back to the consistency piece. And, it has to start in a place of understanding our mechanics and the why behind why each movement matters. And then lastly, the catching it loaded piece, which Joe mentioned in the chat. And that's exactly right. Getting your hands prior to receiving the ball in your shooting position, presenting a target, and then having those soft hands to give with that ball and let it take you into your windup. And, those are really the core principles that, drive a lot of what we talk about. And kind of building on that, one thing that I heard from a basketball coach a couple months ago is that all these different aspects to our shooting are variables, meaning that things can change with any one of them that could affect your final product or your shot. And so if we can reduce the amount of variables or things that we're thinking about and be very concise with our footwork, our stick path, our weight transfer and balance, then we can really start to dial in and make adjustments, mid-game, or adjustments from shot to shot. That way, if you miss, instead of missing and thinking that you're not a good shooter, you just know that you have to make a simple adjustment with, how you follow through or where you're stepping. And that allows you to make some in-game adjustments that can be really beneficial and help you, bounce back from, shot to shot or half to half. So with that and going through that, we're going to go back to these clips here. All right. And then we're going to talk about, one second. And then we're going to talk about kind of what we see within each clip. You'll just hear me hear about what I'm thinking, not only just the on-ball technique or the technique of the shot, but some of the surrounding pieces as well. So in this first situation, this is coming off of an up pick situation. Like I like to call these Utahs, where if we're ever running pairs offense, we can yell Utah to each other to signify, that up pick. So Brad right here works his way up to set a screen. And then when the Kai starts to get top side, he's starting to read this pick defender. All right. And Brad does a nice job here of, after he sets that pick, even though the defender doesn't make contact, he fades and he slips to space. And notice when Brad does that, he's fading to a spot on the field where he can be a threat. So he can catch and shoot. He could catch and hitch. And just like we talked about catching it loaded, he's getting his hands in a position where he's ready to receive that shot. And I think one of the things that's really hard about shooting off of a pick and slip scenario is that your momentum is carrying you away from where you're trying to shoot. So after Brad sets his pick here, notice how, if I just draw a little bit on the screen, notice how Brad's drifting in this direction. And so one thing that's tough about this shot is that he has to catch and plant his feet, but he has to shift his weight all the way back in the direction of the cage. And so that's where, having these good fundamentals and good techniques really come into play so that you can execute at a high level. And even here, oh geez.
Here comes Montgomery.
Even here on this first clip,
Here comes Montgomery against Clance.
you can see that he doesn't get a ton of space. The defender does a good job of getting back into his hands. And so he has to get this ball in and out of his stick efficiently for him to even get the shot off. And so you're thinking, quarterfinal game leading to the semifinals, of the NCAA tournament, the margin for error is so slim. He's got to be really able to fall back on those fundamentals
Smith, right hand, left
that are going to allow him to take that shot.
set the pitch.
One more time here. Slips, catches it loaded, and then look at his balance here on his front foot. Steps to his target, releases it high and away, but it's coming from that over-the-top release point.
Catch against Notre Dame. Irish word.
So kind of going back here, I've had trouble with like the PowerPoint presentation and like going back and forth, but going back here, now you see CJ Carpenter is popping and creating space off the crease. So now he's ready to kind of curl back into the ball. So if you think about where he started a little more inside. He's popping up to create space from the second slide, and then he's curling downhill to step into that shot, and that gives him the spacing he needs to get his hands free from that defender. And again, he's catching it loaded. The pass is on the stick, stepping downhill to his target. And one thing I really like about this shot too, especially you can see from this angle, all right, he catches this goalie, thinking about, maybe a stick side low to this right pipe, but he actually places it more near side to this pipe here and kind of over that goalie's left foot. And so, shooters, if you guys are thinking about, your technique, half the battle is the technique and the things that you do, but then the other half is also changing up your placement. It's being deceptive. It's understanding where goalies are thinking that you're going to shoot and being able to kind of change it up. And so if you think about a lot of righties, maybe some of you guys can think about some of your tendencies and think how many times in this situation you might shoot to this pipe as opposed to this one over here. And so that's something that can also help into our understanding of goalies are also often trying to anticipate, where you're shooting the ball. Yes, they're reading your body language, but if you can kind of adjust and play off of your tendencies a little bit and have the technique to do so, you can start to become a really effective shooter where you're not tipping off what you're trying to do.
Absolutely
see here. So I really like this next clip for a couple of reasons. So the first example, we saw of Brad Smith fading after a pick, catching it loaded. The second example, we saw CJ popping off the crease and following the slide. Here, this is a simple pass, almost like a give and go, but he's following back into the seam. And so again, like some of you guys pointed to spacing as what you noticed with some of these situations. If we're thinking about a man-up situation here or a zone offense, you've got a defender out on this wing, and you've got a defender up top. And as soon as Brian moves that ball to the wing, all 5 Duke defenders right here are looking out at the ball on the wing. And that creates this big gap for Brian to step down into. And notice how as he follows over and fills into that space, he's catching it loaded. All right, quick half cradle. And then he step into his target, finishing balanced over that front foot. Right there, you can see, that's picture perfect form. His stick head's finishing by his front foot for a nice over the top release. And he's balanced as he step into that target for that low and away shot. So here's kind of going back to that Dox Aiken clip. All right, one thing I really like especially is that, to be a big-time scorer, you got to really understand the times that you're open. You have to be ready to demand the ball. And I think right here, Doc starts to realize, you can see he's got his stick up. He's already loaded in shooting position, and he's ready to step down into the space because he sees all these Maryland defenders collapsed low towards goal line. It was a little scramble situation for a ground ball. And then as the feeder gets his eyes up, Dox is able to step down, soft top hand. All right, and again, notice how he lets his hands in shooting position. He lets that pass take him into his windup. All right, he's got good extension. He's stepping to his target here. All right, and he's stepping down ready to hammer a shot. And all the goals that we've seen so far also are a product of the passers putting the ball on the stick. When we talk about the margin for error being very small, you got to be able to put the ball on your teammate's stick and help him set up for success and make that shot easier. So that's a big part of this too. And I know your coaches all emphasize that stick work and being sharp and being a good teammate. It's such a critical component to the team's success on offense. Anyone have any questions or anything so far, or anything else that sticks out to you guys? This next clip here, again, is, one, DeMaio does a really nice job of positioning himself off ball. There was a little 2-man, slip action behind the cage. And then just watch as how he floats around. He's ready to re-engage in the play. Just because the ball in this situation is attacking up the right hash, he realizes that in the matter of seconds, that ball could redirect to him at any time. And so what I really like is how he's always looking for the ball. He's ready here to try and find the passing lane. And as that ball hits up top, really nice skip pass from Bubba Fairman. And you'll see here, the mechanics are so similar. He's catching it loaded. Here, he subtly drops his hands and comes with more of an underhand shot, but it's all in one smooth motion, one kind of catch, half cradle. And we're just going to show one drill later that we really like doing to work on that. And again, it's a simple drill. All right, you guys have probably done it. It's just a matter of really working on the craft and committing to the details. And that way you can really start to dial it in so you can execute at a high level. And I really like here, you know, from this low angle, in one motion, he's able to catch it a little by his shoulder, drop his hands, and then that causes that goalie to drop, and he still ends up changing levels on the shot. So it's a really nice catch and release. And again, a nice way to like vary up, you know, your technique a little bit. You know, I think one thing that's important for young shooters to think about is that each type of shot, whether that's a high to high or a high to low or an underhand or a sidearm, you know, if you will, those all take a lot of practice to get really consistent. And so I think it's important to take a couple shots and really get good at them and then add to your game over time, just like you might do that with dodging, because it's a lot of different stuff to work on. And if you can be really good at one or two things, then you can kind of move on. But if we're always trying to work on every different dodge and every different type of shot, you might end up just being okay because it's hard to kind of split up your practice time. So that's something to kind of consider too. You know, I know for me personally, I never shot low to low until junior or senior year of college. I shot low to high a good bit my freshman year of college, and kind of leading up to that, I really worked hard to develop my overhand shot. So, you know, it was a progression for me, you know, where I was working and trying new things, but I wasn't, you know, always trying to work on everything at once. Here's a nice example here on a little step down from Jamie Trimboli. And I think, again, it's about kind of positioning your body and expecting to receive that ball. Notice how his hands here are already in shooting position. It sticks out in front, and you can watch as I slowly go through it. Watch how he gives with the pass. He lets that pass go from, take the stick from here all the way back with no cradles, right? And that's really the definition of having soft hands and working on drills where you're giving with that ball, working on wall ball, where he lets that pass take him into his windup. It's right on his stick. He steps downhill to his target. And if you think about that clock analogy that we talked about, really look how he finishes by that front foot. It comes straight over the top. Fellas, can anyone chime in here and just mention what you think the benefit of shooting overhand is as opposed to, you know, say sidearm? You know, why do you think coaches tend to emphasize it a lot? So you guys say it's more accurate, all right? Why do you think that it's more accurate, more consistent? What's the reason for that versus? All right, you can shoot in every spot with a net, but you could also theoretically shoot to every spot with sidearm. So keep thinking, what do you think the accuracy piece has to do with the actual release? So I agree with what you guys are saying about the goalie has more trouble reading it. And this is the other reason that I think about for the accuracy piece. When you think about the spots on the cage, and this freeze frame is actually a really good example here. You have 6 feet of net from the ground all the way up to the crossbar. And so when you think about shooting, this spot right here, this spot right here, and this spot right here all have a chance. I'm not saying they're all going to go all the time, but they all have a chance to score. All right, same thing. This spot right here, this spot right here, and this spot right here. All right, all up and down that 6 feet, you have a chance to score a goal, whether the goalie is a lefty or righty. If your stick is going 11 to 5 or 1 to 7 on that clock and working up and down, the path of your stick works up and down the pipes. And because of that, maybe you pull the ball too much, or maybe you don't pull the ball enough. But if you're stepping to your target and the ball's coming over the top, it has a good chance to work somewhere along that pipe. So even if you're not aiming top left and you're aiming bottom left and that ball comes out a little high, it could still score. But if we take that same thought process, all right, and we're thinking about sidearm, and your stick is working more on a horizontal plane, right? We're thinking maybe if you're going top left, you might leave it in the center of the net. You might hit your top left spot, or you might pull it wide, you know, when you're working across that horizontal plane, and you start to eliminate your options a little bit. And so that's the one reason, just again, you know, I know you guys understand why, you know, we talk about shooting overhand or different, or, you know, or underhand, the benefits, but really understanding the why helps, I think, me to always like really believe in why we're doing it, and then to keep practicing at it so we can get really good. So here's a nice little example of a little pop and shot. So you can see this Princeton, I think he's an attackman, he's starting a little closer to this defender, and then he pops away at an angle to create space. And there you can see now he's got a couple yards of space, but he's got to get that ball out quick before this defender approaches to his hands. So being able to catch it loaded, load that back foot and transfer that weight out to get that ball out and be accurate is not easy to do. But you can see at the highest levels of the game, you know, guys are doing things consistently, right? And having, you know, a good success rate with, you know, these type of shots. Same thing, last one here, right? Man up. You kind of know you got to be ready to step in and shoot on man up, so you got to get your hands in that shooting position. And watch his path of his feet here. He's stepping right to his target. He's balanced. Comes over the top, which is near side high. Always a lefty, but really nice placement towards that near pipe. All right, and so you think about all the things that we talked about prior as some of our main fundamentals, right? All are prevalent in multiple clips across the country of some high-level players and some really good shooters. So we'll kind of move on here. Just a couple quick drills, you know, that we like to do to kind of help implement and work on. And you'll see some of the same concepts will come up here. So this is our step-up shooting drill, all right? And I'll let it play here. All right, our step-up shooting drill is really designed to help you work on that weight transfer while keeping your hands in that shooting position. And one of the reasons I really like the step-up piece is that it helps you guys work on that lower body, and it doesn't take away your lower body. You know, it's really effective, I think, because, you know, we always kind of got to keep learning how to incorporate that lower body strength and help drive not just our core, not just our upper body and arms, but really generating power through our legs. And so this is a good one that I like. So if you guys are thinking about reps, you know, I like thinking about, you know, 5 to 10 to 15 shots, strong-handed, 5, 10, 15 shots, weak-handed. In these next couple of drills, you could do in a quick progression. You could do them before practice, after practice. Just get those extra touches that you don't always get in the course of a practice. So you start in a lunge position. Your hands are back and extended. Your eyes are on your target, right? So you're working on that muscle memory. You step up and you explode off that back foot and you work on that balance as you transfer that weight and finish to the net. And our next drill is going to be a little progression off of this. It's going to work on a similar mechanic. So the step up and back drill, we just flip which knee is in front. So now our front knee is up, our back knee is down, and now we're just going to work on a little pop back. So we're popping back to create some space, working on loading that back foot, keep our hands quiet, a half cradle, and then we work on our different spots on the net. You can do this dead center. You can do this off to like a 45-degree angle, and I like working on a 6 to 10 yard distance from the net. I think especially when I'm getting warmed up, I like to be a little closer, just to the emphasis not being so much on, real game-like distance shots, but my mechanics, my form, and getting warmed up. And last one here, one that we did a lot at Duke, little pop shooting drill.
In our pop shooting drill.
All right. So working on getting those hands in the loaded position, receiving that pass, getting your teammate parent, where you could go off of a rebounder to catch that ball in that back and loaded position. Work on taking that straight line to the net during your steps. And again, you can quickly get 5 to 10 to 15 shots. You can work on different spots. And if you think about guys doing that two times, 3 times, 4 times a week, it's not a lot of extra effort in terms of taxing on your body. And if you do 3 or 4 of these technique-based drills and you get 40, 50, 60 shots in addition to anything else that you guys do, and you do that 3, 4 times over the course of a couple months, in addition to any other kinds of shots, it's really going to start to pay dividends, for your habits. So, don't think about it as you got to go out there and you got to work for 2 hours and you just got to work really hard and grind. If you're efficient and you plan and you 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day of some shooting, because I know there's a lot of things to work on, right? There's footwork, there's dodging, there's re-dodging, there's, if you're a long pole, there's, approaches, like you got to lift, as you guys get older, like there's a lot of things that are pulling at your time in addition to just being a kid. So just try and be efficient and get those shots up, but you don't have to spend hours on hours at the field. Does anyone have any questions about those drills as a little progression build up and how we kind of incorporate those? And Greg and Train, I really like having 2 sides of each cage going. So like you can really scale like 3 to 4 cages, have like 10 to 12 guys per cage, and split the lines in half. You can really roll through a lot of like group reps with all of these drills too, which I really like. All right. And then as we just kind of transition, a couple more slides here, transition to some on the run shooting. One of the biggest things that made a difference in my game, and this goes back to just having that open mind I briefly mentioned earlier, was I had a pretty good high school career. I was headed to Duke, but I talked to my shooting coach, this guy that I met in Baltimore who coached against me, and we started working together after high school. And I wanted to just get better and improve. And the biggest thing that he taught me was, about getting my momentum going to my target on the run and not fading away, moving to the net, being physical, turning the corner. And it really made a big difference in, how I really believe in shooting on the run. It really changed my game. And I felt like it's really paid off for the girls that I've gotten to work with, over the last couple of years as well. So, again, there's a lot of different ways to, shoot in different kind of shots. And this is just something that, I've really come to believe in because it's made a big difference for me. And so really the biggest piece is just this mindset of getting your body momentum back to your target, back to the cage. And then everything else, really is the same from your time and room mechanics. We talk about, especially on the run, I really like to focus on being overhand, 11 to 5 and 1 to 7, hitting 4 different spots or 6 different spots around the net with the same looking shot, and getting that ball out in 3 steps, max from when you kind of, initiate your shot on the run coming out of a dodge. So those are kind of our main core principles. And, you know, one of the best ways that we really like to do that is our layup drill. And this is a drill we did at Duke a lot, but I've also kind of changed it a little bit from how we did it at Duke. So
The layup drill
at Duke,
is-
we did a lot of, you know, jump shooting. And so here, end up in a back pedal and my body rotates through. And there's sometimes that my upper body rotates, but my lower body just continues running in that path. So it's not something that I'm always like overemphasizing. I just more tend to focus on where our general body is moving, you know? So I think like if you're moving away, that's where sometimes I like to just emphasize getting back to the net. But what I do really like about the back pedal is it really helps you think about getting, you know, that torque and that rotation, finishing your shot. So, you know, it really just kind of depends, but it also just goes back to like, there are different cues and different things that, you know, can help you, you know, get the job done. And it's just about, you know, taking those and making sure you're like understanding too, the why behind it. And that's why it's always good to ask those questions so you can your IQ for the game and your technique can kind of keep growing. So here's just a couple on the run examples. This one here is a freshman from Yale. So he does a really nice job here on a rollback, getting back down the alley. But notice how even though he's going down the alley, he still finishes with his last couple steps back to the net, takes a hit, he comes over the top. It's not as much 3/4, he comes true over the top. We'll see a couple other angles of it. We're gonna see a couple clips here from Yale. Again, watch how he comes out of his rollback, he gets his eyes up, he's ready to freeze the slide with a little pump fake. Then he gets that last plant to help get back to the cage. That's where it's about also being ready to be physical and take that hit. His back shoulder comes through nicely. But every step, especially with the alley, every step is so important because every step you take with your stick to the outside down the alley, especially if you angle to the corner of the field, you lose angle very quickly. And good goalies can really cut off your shooting, like what kind of net you can see. And so the more that you can kind of finish back to the net down the alley as well, you're going to maintain some angle, even though it is a harder shot and less net to shoot at than the middle of the field. Here's Sean Cutton. This was Sean's first goal of the season. Sean's a player that I've worked with a few times out of Long Island. Really nice job coming out of the split. Again, finishing back to the net. Let's see if there's another. One more angle here of this one. 1, 2, 3, balls out, right? He's moving back to the cage, gets the ball out of his stick before the slide comes. Here's one, just one of mine from this summer. You know, this is out of a swim move. And I think, again, it's just kind of just trying to show the point of the path that I could take out of my dodge. And so if you watch it here, I really try and angle back to the net where at least like not fade away. Because if I took that angle moving outwards towards the sideline, Kyle Bernlohr is a really good goalie that's going to be able to gobble that up. And so like here, like you can see, right, that stick path coming over the top. And I don't have a lot of net to be shooting at, right? So, you know, luckily I'm able to kind of catch him, you know, guessing or thinking or reading low. but because that ball is working over the top like we talked about, I'm able to place it in there right above his shoulder along that far pipe. And so that kind of comes back. That wasn't my hardest shot, right? But the placement piece is important in being able to place it on net. And last one here, another one of Brian Costabile. Brian shoots with a lot of the same on the run mechanics that I do. We learn from the same guy.
Can to Costabile.
This time out of a rollback, comes downhill. Right, he gets it out quick. He gets his shoulders turned. So as he comes with the roll, look how he's turned. Comes over the top. Gets his body rotating through. Good placement. Protects his stick on the rollback. Right, always guessing a little bit. Drops his stick. And catches one. Nice job example there on the run. So just a couple of good examples for time and room and on the run. What we're talking about, trying to keep it simple and be really good at some of these simple mechanics to help really put it in the play, and then just understand how you can help adjust yourself from shot to shot and keep building that consistency. So, with that wraps up my my presentation. Wanted to just open it up for some questions or anything else from trainer Greg, and kind of just go from there.
See if you boys have any questions, go ahead and type those, or you can unmute yourself and you can ask Deemer, Coach Class, any questions you have. I think one of the things that I really want to reiterate that Deemer said was talking about those drills that he showed in the fact that you only need to do 10 to 15 of those, every time you go out and shoot, and over the course of time, you've built, I should say 10 to 15 reps. You've built up so many reps over the course of a month by doing that and built that muscle memory and done it the right way. It's not about coming out and doing the same drill for 2 hours, like Deemer said. And I think that's really important for you guys, especially when you're doing a lot of training on your own right now, is to make sure that, you're doing some of those drills that Deemer showed, but making sure that, you're not doing the same drill for 2 straight hours.
Yeah, I think that's, as you guys are thinking of questions, that's one thing that kind of helped me is like when you go out to shoot, having a plan, it doesn't have to be super scripted every time, but, having a couple things that you want to focus on, do you want to focus on shooting out of a rollback? Do you want to focus on, up the hash shooting as an attackman, or question marks, and do a couple drills to just get your blood flowing and work on your technique and get going. Do a couple drills that are targeted towards what you want to focus on, and then do a couple things where maybe it's a new move, maybe it's something you haven't tried, and all of a sudden you're at 100, 120 shots in 40 minutes to an hour, or less than that if you don't have the time, and you start being consistent with your work like that, and it really starts to pay off.
Anybody else got any questions they want to ask Deemer? All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up, man. Really appreciate you coming out. There's a couple questions. Oh, just thanks. Really appreciate you being out here, Deemer. Obviously, you guys will have an opportunity to watch him, hopefully, this summer, if all goes well, and we're back at it. And we're gonna have Coach on again next week, right? I believe is next week or 2 weeks. Got another day lined up for you.
2 weeks, yeah.
In 2 weeks. So be sure to follow up, and like Coach Bice said, we'll have this up for you guys and emailed out for you, so you're able to look back and watch it again.
And Deemer's going to come to the Resolute Athletic Complex, boys, and do a shooting session, hopefully as well, in July, right?
Live.
Yeah.
Yep. Be there in July. Look forward to being there and hope to have some of you guys there.
Awesome, man. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks.